I stood in the kitchen, the smell of roasted chicken mingling with the sweet aroma of my mother's famous honey-glazed carrots. The chaos of family dinner night reverberated through the house, children giggling and playing hide-and-seek in the hallway while my father and grandfather competed at poker in the living room. I could hear the clattering of utensils, the sound of dishes being set on the table, and the muffled banter of excitement bouncing off the walls. Yet in the middle of this orchestrated chaos, I felt a heavy weight sitting squarely on my chest. It was a familiar feeling, one that made my heart race and my palms sweat. I had not been able to shake my nerves since learning about the upcoming reading of the will, a thin veil of tension laying over the evening like thick fog that refused to lift. "Can you set the table, please?" my mother asked, her voice slightly tinged with exhaustion as she came into the kitchen. She looked as perfect as always, her hair trailing perfectly curled around her shoulders and her apron spotless despite the culinary battle she had fought in the kitchen. "Sure, Mom," I replied, mentally rolling up my sleeves. "It's just about done, right?" I tried to keep my tone upbeat, but inside I was battling a restless storm of emotions. All I could think of was my grandfather's recent hospitalization and how, at any moment, everything could change. I tried to ignore the gnawing fear that crept into my thoughts. "I can't believe he's finally gone," my brother muttered from the doorway, leaning against the frame with arms crossed, his face twisted in a look I had come to recognize as annoyance. "I mean, what's the point? Not like he had anything great left to leave us anyway." My hands froze mid-motion, the fork I was holding clattering against the plate. "What did you just say?" I snapped, feeling the heat rising to my cheeks. "That's our grandfather you're talking about." "Oh, please," my brother scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "All he ever did was sit in that old chair and talk about the good old days. Because obviously the world revolved around him." "Stop it." I felt my heart racing, frustration bubbling. "You have no idea how hard it's been on him. Just because you never bothered with him doesn't mean you can talk like that." I realized that I was raising my voice, but the thought of him assuming that he could look down on our grandfather like that made my insides twist. "He favored you anyway," he shot back, narrowing his eyes at me. "You always were his little princess. You think he loved you more than any of us?" "Would you just shut up?" I yelled. Moments later, I instantly regretted it. I glanced at my mother, who had paused in her task, wide-eyed, trying to gauge if she should step in. My brother's smirk faded slightly at my voice, but only for a moment. "You just don't want to admit that he chose a favorite," he said, his voice trailing off dismissively. "You always had the easiest path. With you, it was always special treatment, extra money, fancy clothes. He never even looked my direction." "It's not like you needed it," I exclaimed, waving my hand angrily. "You got into that fancy college and lived in luxury. Just because you decided to throw it away doesn't mean you get to act like it was handed to you. Both of you stop it." My mother finally intervened, exasperated. She shot us each a look that dared us to pay attention and not ruin the evening. "We are here to support each other, remember? Your grandfather wouldn't want this." I shifted my weight, my heart racing even more than before. I opened my mouth to keep arguing, but the doorbell rang, cutting me off. It was a relief, really. A momentary distraction from the simmering tension that was threatening to boil over. "Who in the world could that be?" my mother muttered as she walked towards the door, discontent clear in her expression. "I hope it's not more family," my brother whispered just loud enough for me to hear, shaking his head, the remnants of a smirk lingering at the corners of his mouth. When my mother opened the door, I looked past her, half expecting it to be some far-flung relative or an old friend of my grandfather's. But instead, it was shockingly unexpected. A woman in a crisp black blazer holding an envelope tightly in her grasp. Her expression was unreadable, eyes scanning the room like she was a hawk on the prowl. "Can I help you?" my mother asked, her voice cautious, hovering between curiosity and concern. "I'm here to speak about the will," the woman replied, her voice steady, an edge of authority weaving through her words. As she stepped inside, I felt an immediate chill run down my spine, the cheerful atmosphere evaporating like mist in sunlight. "The what?" My brother's voice cut through the air like a knife, disbelief etched on his face. "Are you serious?" "Yes," the woman said. "As the attorney handling your grandfather's estate, I need to discuss the particulars of the will with all the immediate family members. This could take a bit of time." "Excuse me." My mother interjected, her brows knitting together, a hint of panic creeping into her expression. "I wasn't aware that he had made any changes. We weren't prepared for this." The attorney placed the envelope on the counter, letting the silence stretch across the room. "If you would all take a seat, we can proceed," she suggested coolly, crossing her arms as if to fend off any objections. Are you serious right now? My brother shot back, incredulous. We didn't even know he had an attorney. His voice pierced the fragile atmosphere. It is absolutely necessary, the attorney replied, her tone unwavering. There are some family matters that need to be addressed after his passing, especially regarding the inheritance. My chest tightened at her words. Inheritance. It felt like a jagged blade cutting through me, revealing deep-seated fears I had buried beneath layers of familial loyalty and love. I felt heat creep up my neck, realizing how much weight rested on those few syllables. What if my brother was right? What if my grandfather had truly favored me all along? He didn't say anything to me about this, my mother muttered, shooting worried glances at my brother and me. I sensed her unease ripple through the air, changing the way we all took a breath in that moment. Unless you all want to waste time standing here, I suggest we proceed, the attorney insisted, her impatience growing. This matter is quite urgent. Urgent. The word hung heavily in the air, and I could not shake the feeling that we were on the brink of something monumental and devastating. I felt frozen, my heart racing, my stomach twisting. I exchanged a glance with my brother, who seemed as unnerved as I was. I had always assumed that I would inherit something significant, something that would finally put all the years of favoritism and feelings of being ostracized at rest. Yet suddenly, insecurity bubbled to the surface. My grandfather's affection, his pride, could have been hiding something darker. Fine, my mother relented, her voice low but firm. Let's just get this over with. She led the way into the living room, and I followed closely behind, my pulse pounding in my ears. The moment we all settled onto the sofas, my grandfather's old armchair seeming to loom ominously over us, I could sense the tension thickening with each passing heartbeat. Anxiety had a tight grasp around my throat as we sat in the living room, reunited as if for some dark family ritual. I could not shake the feeling that today would unveil truths I was entirely unprepared for. Now, your grandfather made some difficult decisions considering the recent events, the attorney began, producing a neatly folded piece of paper from the envelope. Understand that these decisions reflect the legacy he chose to leave behind. As she unfolded the document before us, I held my breath, waiting. I could feel the weight of my family's gaze fixed upon me, confusion and resentment melding into something altogether sinister. What if I was not favored? What if the opposite happened? I cannot believe this, my brother whispered sharply, an incredulous tone lacing every word. You are seriously ruining our dinner over this? Ignoring him, I pressed my lips together, keeping silent. I could not shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something that could change the course of our lives forever. The attorney cleared her throat before continuing. Your grandfather has made it clear in his will that the distribution of assets will not be straightforward. He intended to leave his estate to those he felt were deserving, and he wishes that this discussion remained confidential until after his burial. Confidential? My voice shook more than I intended as it cut into the tense air. Why? What could be so bad that we cannot discuss it? There are some surprises in this document that may not sit well with your family, the attorney replied with dispassionate calm. He wanted to ensure mutual respect and discretion. Mutual respect, my brother scoffed, the hint of cynicism dripping from his tone. Please, if he really cared about mutual respect, he would not have favored one of us over the other. This is all so unfair. I caught my mother's eyes, filled with a restlessness that echoed my own apprehension. Both of us were aware that the seams of this family were fraying, and I felt a surge of anger at my brother's words. I refused to fold under the weight of our grandfather's decisions. Everything began to feel heavier in that moment, especially the silence that echoed as my heart thrummed violently in my chest. I could feel the shaky power dynamics shifting, and I knew deep down that I must rise above the chaos threatening to engulf us. You will learn about your grandfather's choices shortly, the attorney continued, the soothing quality in her voice all but evaporating. However, I must remind you that his wishes are binding and should not be contested. You will need to accept these decisions, whether you agree with them or not. I could feel the walls closing in, shadows casting over my family as we all exchanged glances, apprehension mixing with a rising sense of dread. Had I become the favored child, or was I just another pawn in this game of family politics? Part of me wanted to bolt from the room, to run away from this uncomfortable meeting that threatened to expose everything we had buried beneath layers of denial and tradition. Instead, the realization sank deeper. The weight of expectations rested squarely on my shoulders now. I had to learn the truth, no matter how bitter it might be. I had to know. Footsteps echoed through the silence, and I sensed the confrontation just starting to pick up steam, tension curling in the air like smoke from a fire. My hands trembled slightly as I prepared myself for what was about to transpire, ready to piece together the fragmented patchwork of our family legacy, filled with secrets and deceit, waiting to be unraveled. "We deserve to know," I stated, my voice lining with a steely determination. "I will not accept anything less." The room stilled, my family's eyes fixated on me in a mixture of disbelief and defiance. And in that charged moment, I could feel destiny shifting underneath us like an impending storm, wrapping each of us in a web of unresolved emotions and unearthed grievances. Whatever came next would be a reckoning I had never truly prepared for. Igniting the embers of revenge that flickered in the shadows of my heart, the air was thick with tension as I stepped into the living room, the familiar smell of my mother's lavender-scented candles mixing with the earthy aroma of the damp rain just outside. The atmosphere felt charged, like a storm waiting to burst. My father sat on the worn leather couch, the creases around his eyes deepening as he scrolled through his phone with a distracted frown. Across the room, my sister was perched at the dining table, an untouched bowl of popcorn sitting in front of her like a poorly attempted peace offering. I could sense the conflict bubbling beneath the surface. The last few weeks had stripped away any semblance of normalcy in our family, leaving us just a series of trapped players in a sinister game of betrayal. My hands shook slightly as I approached the table, the wood cold beneath my touch. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the fluttering uncertainty in my stomach. My brother was out on a late-night run, and part of me wished he would hurry back. I needed his presence, his steadfastness. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the distant sound of rain hitting the roof, a raw reminder of how everything had changed. "Nothing," my mother replied, her tone sharp as she looked up from her phone. She was trying to appear indifferent, but I noticed the slight twitch in her jaw, a telltale sign that something serious was brewing. "Just waiting for your brother to get back." Her eyes flickered towards my father, who finally glanced up, a hint of annoyance on his face. "Why are you both acting so weird?" I pressed, feeling a twinge of frustration each time I tried to pry them open. "If there's something to discuss, let's talk about it." "Just family stuff, Lydia," my father replied, his voice heavy with tension. I could see that he wanted to dismiss me, but the words felt almost trapped within his throat. He looked older, more tired than ever, and part of me wanted to comfort him. Instead, I dug deeper. "Family stuff?" I echoed, a mix of disbelief and indignation swirling within me. "Is that what you call it when someone gets cut off from everything? You all seem so calm about it." The words spilled out before I could stop them, the heat of betrayal igniting every syllable. I wasn't just talking about the inheritance dispute. The whispers of favoritism and secrets had ripped through our family like wildfire, leaving nothing but charred remains of trust and loyalty. "Lydia, don't," my sister interjected, her voice wavering slightly as she shifted in her chair. "You don't know everything." Her eyes were wide, filled with an earnestness that felt misplaced. Did she really think we were still capable of pretending everything was fine? I could see the flicker of her hopefulness dimming, just as mine felt crushed beneath the weight of our reality. "Then enlighten me," I snapped back, my chest tightening with every word. The room felt stifling now, the walls closed in around us, the shadows looming larger with every moment. I could feel the electricity in my veins, the anger surfacing, fueled by the perceived injustice and helplessness I had been feeling. "Tell me how you can all just pretend to be happy when someone in this family is being so unfairly treated." My father slammed his phone onto the table, the impact startling all of us. "Stop acting like the victim all the time," he barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the thick tension. It was a tone I had not heard from him in a long time, and it managed to freeze me in place. "You think you're the only one suffering? You think you're the only one this mess affects? Don't you see? It wasn't just about the money." I felt the urgency rise within me. $100,000 had been mentioned, a staggering amount that now hung heavy in the air, the wind of privilege blowing cold against my skin. It was about trust, loyalty, love, everything that seemed to evaporate faster than water on a hot pavement the moment the scent of inheritance was nearby. "You chose them over me. You made your decision clear." "Enough," my mother shot back, her voice trembling now, fracturing like glass under pressure. "This is not the time for us to tear each other apart. We need to discuss how to move forward." "Move forward?" I repeated incredulously, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. You mean like how you just accepted brother's decision so easily, after everything that happened? My heart raced as I felt the weight of every word. My mother's eyes looked pained, and for a moment, even she felt like a stranger. A slow silence fell over us, each face turned inward as if lost in thought. Would they finally see my perspective, the unfairness, or would they continue to wear their blinders, obliviously clinging to what felt safe? Each second felt like an eternity as I searched their faces for understanding. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows, highlighting the tension in the room. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized we were standing on the brink of something far more catastrophic than just unspoken words. Why did you let him take it all? Why didn't you fight back? I pressed, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks with the mounting frustration. You worked hard for everything, Mother. You always said you taught us to stand tall when we were wronged. And now you just... I stopped short, my words catching in my throat as a realization washed over me. Was I merely prolonging our suffering? What if digging deeper just tore more wounds open? Because sometimes fighting doesn't lead to anything good, my mother finally replied, her voice soft, almost defeated. It brings pain. It tears families apart. And letting him have everything does. I couldn't help it. The bitterness spilled over. I feel like I'm a joke, a punching bag for your decision to avoid conflict at all costs. Although, I took a deep breath, my voice growing more resolute despite the fear in my chest. I can't be your scapegoat anymore. I want my share, my freedom from this toxic cycle. I deserve to be treated with respect, just like everyone else here. You think bringing in another partner into this family is going to fix it all? At that moment, the tension in the room shifted, a palpable change crackling in the air. My sister shot me a stunned look, eyes wide, while the air became charged, heated with the unsaid ideas grazing over the edges of our family that had gone unaddressed for too long. Who knows if we are even family anymore? My sister finally whispered, her voice trembling as she averted her gaze. It stung like a slap across the face. I felt my heart racing, unable to truly comprehend the weight of her words. Stop it, my mother snapped, wiping her eyes fiercely. We cannot let this run us into the ground. We need to stick together. Together? I scoffed, the disbelief pouring from every corner of my being. You call this togetherness, when you let favoritism tear us apart, when you think this is just a hierarchy built on money, nothing feels united in here. My voice broke slightly, the emotions choking me as anger bubbled too close to the surface. At that moment, I heard the door swing open, heavy footsteps echoing through the house. Relief trickled in, a desperate longing for my brother's arrival flooding through my veins. The minute he stepped into the room, his face reading the tension like an open book, I could feel the dynamic shift again. He was always the typical peacemaker, the glue that held us together. Hey, did I miss something? He asked lightly, but his eyes reflected the urgency, the weight of the storm brewing between us. What's going on? Lydia was just having a little meltdown, my father replied, the dismissive tone harsh enough to draw my brother's brows together in confusion. Meltdown? I'm just tired of all the lies and favoritism. I shot back, the vulnerable feeling mostly sideways to my anger. You're all fighting things unseen, but I want to fight for what is mine. That's what family is all about, right? What do you mean? My brother asked cautiously, looking more and more uncomfortable as he sensed the rancor spreading through the room. Did you know they gave $200,000 to your girlfriend? I stated, voice trembling with indignation. They didn't care about what my share could mean to me and treat me like I was nothing during inheritance discussions. I was too busy working for it while you played heartthrob Prince Charming. In an instant, I could see all the pieces shifting, the disbelief on my brother's face, my sister's wariness, and my mother's defeated posture. My brother's expression sank, and my mother gasped softly. This was the moment everything hung in the air, and we stood encased in our own accusations. The sense of betrayal hung thick as we locked eyes, each of us realizing the chasm that had opened wider and wider between us, a dark abyss of distrust swirling like a storm cloud ready to break. I took a step back, my heart pounding in tandem with the soft sound of raindrops still falling outside, resonating with the gathering storm within. I wanted to scream, to curl into a ball and cry for the pieces of our family, but the truth was a sharper pain. Maybe it is better to expose the secrets we've kept hidden. Maybe it's time for us to realize the truth of our family bonds, I whispered, the words tasting like metal as they left my lips. My heart raced in anticipation, knowing this multicolored thread we were weaving was about to unravel in a manner that would change everything. And then, a slam echoed through the air. The door to the living room had shut abruptly as my brother, unable to pick a side, stormed back outside into the rain. Stunned silence enveloped us. My mother's eyes were wide, the fear mirrored in my sister's expression. I could feel the weight of every soul in the room as family ties solidified and then cracked open, exposing something raw, something deeper in the longing to be seen, heard, and most importantly, wanted. I felt a deep resolve begin to grow in me, a bubbling surge of determination, but it was marred by the unavoidable hardship of our fractured situation. I took a deep breath, steadying myself as the reality settled against the numbness. Our family was at war with itself, and I was done being the silent victim. I would not walk away quietly anymore. I would find a way to reclaim what was rightfully mine. An undeniable fire ignited within me as I thought of every unfair moment in our past, ready to echo my pain. The showdown was just beginning, and I was prepared to confront the aftermath of all these secrets, even if it tore our family apart in the process. This was far from over. I stepped into the living room where my brother and sister were sitting, the old oak furniture creaking under their weight as they leaned forward in their seats, a tension thick enough to cut through with a knife slicing through the quiet ambience. It was one of those evenings where the summer sun poured in through the large windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air, but all I felt was the prickling chill crawling up my spine. The smell of my mother's lasagna wafted in from the kitchen, rich and comforting, but it couldn't mask the discontent simmering in the room. "Did you hear what they said at the meeting?" My brother's voice shattered the silence, the eagerness in it clashing with his anxious demeanor. I already knew what he was talking about. The family meeting we were all summoned to was not just any meeting, it was an inheritance reading. The words echoed in my mind like a taunt, a promise of division. "Grandfather cut you off?" he continued, his eyes searching my face for a reaction, probably hoping for some confirmation of his shock. I stared at him, my stomach knotting tighter. "He cut off all of us," I said, crossing my arms defensively. He went pale just talking about the estate. I dropped onto the couch, wishing it would swallow me whole. It was one thing to be blindsided, but to have it happen in front of everyone. My grandfather had demanded that we all stay united, all while he pulled the financial rug from under us. "Not me," my sister chirped, her voice dripping with that all too familiar condescending tone. "I mean, I saw the way he looked at you, Lydia. The way he favored me when I brought up the idea of taking over the family business. I think he believes in me." The triumphant glimmer in her eyes felt like salt in an open wound. My own self-worth seemed to shrink in that moment. "What? Is this a joke?" I felt my hands clenching, the anger beginning its slow boil. "You think because you were mentioned first that you matter more?" My voice cracked with disbelief. Her privileged position as the so-called family favorite was always clear, but this was the apex of her self-righteousness. I brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, trying to steady myself. "Grandfather put a price tag on love. We are more than just potential profit to him." My brother shifted uncomfortably on the couch, his eyes darting between us as though he was watching a tennis match, the tension thickening with every word. "But it was only clear he wants to keep the business within the family. After what happened with Uncle Steve," he trailed off. "I thought we were all supposed to be part of it." Uncle Steve. The name hung in the air like a ghost, conjuring bad memories. My father's brother had always been the black sheep, the one who refused to follow in grandfather's footsteps, who chose the path of rebellion. He had died under circumstances that still whispered untruths through family gatherings. Suddenly, unease filled the room, and all I could think about was how Uncle Steve had been cut off too, and how I wanted to scream that the cycle would only prove itself further as resentment grew, bone-deep and bitter. "No one cares about your delusions of grandeur, sister," I snapped back at her. "Just because you think you matter does not change the fact that this family is fractured. For God's sake, look around." I felt a surge of defiance rising in me, my heart racing. How could she be so nonchalant about the impending chaos brought about by our grandfather's greed? My mother entered the room right then, wiping her hands on a dish towel. The softened expression on her face showed that she was weary of our fights, but I could see the flicker of exasperation. "You three need to stop squabbling," she said firmly, but I could hear the underlying plea wrapped in her voice. "We are family. We have to stick together." "Together?" I shot back, my voice rising involuntarily. "When has it ever been together, Mom? Look around. We're fighting over pieces of paper and titles while he hands out favors like candy. Your love is conditional." The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but I pushed through. "I just cannot take this anymore." My mother went quiet, her hands freezing over the dish towel, and I could feel the energy in the room shift. I had hit a nerve, and while part of me felt guilty, another part relished this moment. She looked tired, old before her time, like the weight of our family's history was crushed onto her fragile shoulders. It was painful, watching her finally allow her facade to crack just enough for me to see the truth that lurked underneath. "Lydia," she began, her voice unsteady, "this is not how we are supposed to handle this." "Are you even listening?" I pressed, hardly able to contain my rising frustration. "What are we supposed to do? Sit around the dinner table and pretend everything is fine? When was the last time we had an honest conversation? The last time you chose me over them? Or chose at all?" My voice trembled involuntarily, revealing more than I intended. I could feel tears begin to well up, the painful rush of betrayal walking the line of vulnerability, and I fought it back. "I don't want to be pawns in his game, Mom," I admitted softly, the anger inside of me suddenly becoming intertwined with sadness. "I want to be more than just a line in an inheritance letter. I want to matter." "We all matter," my brother interjected, his frustration bubbling over. "But you need to realize that family means sacrifice, loyalty. Maybe you're just not trying hard enough." His words hit me harder than I expected. The accusation felt like a punch to the gut. "Look at sister, how she is doing everything right." "Doing everything right?" I interrupted, my heart racing. "You're saying this is right, breaking bonds over material wealth?" I gestured wildly, the heat rising to my cheeks. "You're both blind if you cannot see that." "Stop trying to drag us down with you, Lydia," my sister spat, lips curling into a snarl. "Stop playing the victim. You always do this, and frankly, I am so tired of it." The air crackled with tension, each word striking like lightning. I could feel the warmth of anger wash over me, followed quickly by a cold wave of despair. All the moments I had spent fighting for their approval and understanding felt like they were crashing down around me. Was I truly the villain in this story, or was it just a twisted perception built on their bias? "Maybe I will let you two enjoy the spoils of preference then," I shot back bitterly, feeling an aching pit of hatred for the inequality that had become our reality. "I will step aside to watch you two play favorites. It seems you have a game worth winning." "Fine, go ahead and wallow." "It shows how selfish you really are," my sister said, crossing her arms and leaning back, the smirk on her face almost nauseating. "It is about time you learned your place." My heart churned, but your words, they only ignited a fire inside me. The idea of being the underdog, the one who was going to rise and claim my rightful place in this family, no matter the cost, began to take root in my mind. Part of me wanted to give up. But the part that rose up in defiance was not going to let this continue without a fight. "I'll show you selfish," I declared, my voice steadying as clarity struck me like a bolt. "You think you can just belittle me forever? I deserve recognition, opportunities, no more living in your shadows." I pushed off the couch and stepped closer to her, rage emboldening me. I looked into her eyes, searching for a hint of sympathy but only found disdain. "Oh, please," she sneered, and for a moment the self-righteousness reflected back at me made my blood boil. "Like you could take this family's approval away from me. You are nothing without our grandfather's favor." Her words stung, but they also ignited a spark. "Then let's see how far I am willing to go," I replied, an unexpected steel creeping into my tone. "Watch your back, sister, because things are going to change." "Go ahead, Lydia." My mother finally broke her silence, her voice strained but unwavering. "But setting out on this path will only hurt you and us." With those words echoing through my mind, I turned to leave, frustration surging within me, my hand gripping the doorknob tightly as I prepared to step out into the evening air. I felt a moment of liberation fill me, the promise of revenge looming on the horizon, a familiar sensation I had yet to fully embrace. A few steps away, they called my name, but the words faded into the growing distance. I knew that this was not over, not by a long shot. As the door slammed behind me, the sound creating a finality that felt like a death knell, I took a deep breath and felt the cool night air hit me, sharp and invigorating. I felt alive, empowered. I would claim what was rightfully mine. Whether they figured it out or not, they were not ready for what I had planned. The storm was brewing, and the only thing left was to watch it unfold. The air was heavy with the smell of garlic and roasted chicken, the imperfections of the family dinner creeping back from the past like unwanted weeds. My parents had insisted that we gather for a dinner in honor of my sister's recent promotion, a proud moment that should have filled the room with joy. Instead, it buzzed with an undercurrent of tension, like a storm lurking beneath a rigid blue sky. My heart raced as I watched my sister preen under the soft glow of the chandelier, her laughter ringing out loud and clear, the kind of laughter that used to feel like home. Now, it felt foreign, as if I didn't belong in that space anymore. "Sister," my brother called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "any chance this promotion means you will finally pay us back that $50 you borrowed for the concert last year?" She turned to him, eyes narrowing, her smile faltering for just a beat before she responded, "Funny, I remember you won a much larger bet with me about that concert. You owe me at least 100 now." Their banter should have made me laugh, but it sent gnawing shifts of anxiety through my chest. I had bills to pay, debts I was slowly drowning in. My parents had cut me off when I chose to follow my dreams instead of taking over the family business. This evening was an obligation, a reminder of everything I no longer had. I caught my grandmother eyeing me from across the table. She was wringing her hands in her lap. It was a small movement, but the tension it conveyed felt like an anchor pulling me down. The silence that followed in her gaze screamed louder than the laughter bouncing off the walls. It was a look I had seen far too many times before, a mixture of pity and disappointment. "What about you, dear?" she asked. "What are you up to these days?" I could hear the conversing voices quiet down, all eyes shifting to me, waiting. My mind raced, searching for a safe answer, a polite dismissal. "I am working on some new projects," I replied, trying to keep my tone upbeat. "Freelancing." It felt weak. "A little side work." "What side work?" My father leaned back, a knowing smirk creeping across his face. He always had a way of twisting a simple question into something accusatory. "Just some graphic design, truly," I said, my tone softening. "It's going well, I promise." "Well, this freelance thing, it just sounds so, I don't know, risky," my mother interjected, her voice both sweet and sour. "You could always come back and work with us, you know." "No thanks," I said too sharply, instantly regretting it as I noticed the darkness in my parents' eyes. Did they notice how my hands were shaking, how my stomach tightened? "I like the freedom I have now." "Freedom?" My father snorted, and I could feel the temperature drop. "Is that what you call it? It sounds more like running away to me. You could have everything handed to you here if you just accepted a little responsibility and came back to work." "Father, there is more to life than just making money," I exclaimed, my heart thudding loudly in my chest. "I refuse to just be a cog in the machine." "Then how do you expect to survive?" This came from my brother, his voice laced with derision. "By following dreams that won't pay off." Silence fell once more, and my resolve bubbled and pressed against the edges of my frustration. I could feel my stomach knotting tighter as I recognized his point. The truth was, my bank account was nearing empty. I had come to realize, painfully so, that my independence bore an empty price. Suddenly, the clang of glass broke the tension. My sister raised her wine glass filled with a deep red liquid, shimmering under the light as if it held the very essence of her success. "To new beginnings," she declared, voice bright and triumphant. Everyone cheered, glasses clinking together, laughter ricocheting off the walls. "Cheers," I muttered, raising my own glass until it trembled, my grip tightening as I took a sip, feeling the wine burn down my throat. It tasted like sour regret, mismatched to the celebration around me. "You should really take notes from your sister," my grandmother sighed. "She knows how to get ahead in life." The laughter faded and internal harpoons of bitterness sank deep. "Yes, clearly," I whispered, but it was barely audible even to me. "I mean, who doesn't want to become their parents' little puppet?" "Enough of this," my mother snapped suddenly, her voice smooth yet edged like a knife. "This discussion has gone far enough. This is a celebration, for heaven's sake," but celebration felt distant and foreign now. It felt trapped beneath bitterness and hurt. The tension had thickened like syrup, dragging me down under the weight of unspoken accusations. The way my family chose to gather was no longer about love. It felt more like a competition, a constant evaluation of who was winning. "Mother, I just want you guys to understand," I began, but my words fell into the chasm of disinterest in their eyes. "Understand what?" my father interrupted, leaning forward, arms crossed. "That you are floundering?" There it was, the truth stripped bare. I went pale. A tightening knot pulled at my throat as I tried to speak to them, speak against them, but all that came out was a whisper. "No, I just want you to see me." "See you?" My sister laughed, her tone dismissive. "Since when has it ever been about you, Lydia?" "Never apparently," I shot back, venom lining my words. "It's always about who can impress mother and father the most." "That is fundamentally unfair," my mother interjected, her voice rising, eyebrows arching in disbelief. "We don't play favorites here. We love you all equally." "Right," I shot back, heat rising to my cheeks. The difference is blinding. You chose them over me the moment I decided to venture off the beaten path. You have all cut me off. You couldn't even bring yourselves to acknowledge my hopes without mocking them. Tension crackled once again, the air thick and oppressive. I poured another glass of wine, something to calm my nerves, my eyes squeezing shut as I forced back the tears welling up inside, the evidence of the battle I had been fighting far too long. You want me to be just like them, stable, responsible, and predictable. But look where it has got me. I have nothing left. And frankly, neither do you. There was a heavy silence. The room felt like it was closing in on me. My grandmother's gaze softened at my anguish, but it was too late. I was already spiraling. The way I clutched the base of my wine glass was desperate. You all sit here acting like everything is fine, but it's not. You never listen to me. You never want to hear about my struggles. You are so keen on raising your perfect children while I am the black sheep. Stop it. My sister's voice pierced through my spiraling thoughts, her eyes flashing with anger. You don't get to play the victim card here. You made your own choices. Everything you've done has led you to this point. Don't expect sympathy. There was a sting in her words. I could feel my heart pounding and the heat flushing through my face. Was it envy that fueled her anger, or was it just her always needing to be the center? My throat felt tight. I work hard for what I have. She continued, voice rising. And you think you can paint me as the bad guy, just because I actually found a path? You need to get over yourself. I see you all climbing the ladders, forging your perfect lives, and I'm the one who is nothing, I replied, my voice cracking like glass. Everything I have done, I've fought against your expectations. I have tried. I took risks. Each time I fail like this feels like placing a nail in the coffin of my worth. No one has placed a nail in your coffin, my father retorted, voice low but cold. That is a choice you make for yourself. I wanted to scream, to let the emotions overflow into the room. I felt betrayed. Time after time, they had held my hopes hostage while praising my siblings for their conventional charms. The knives had stabbed again, and yet they looked innocent. You may not see it, but you cut me off after I did everything to seek my truth. You can't unsee your favoritism. The tension crested, voices rising higher, but there was no turning back now. I was done with feeling invisible. Cut you off. My mother looked shocked, her mouth falling open. Lydia, stop throwing around accusations like this. You made the choice to take your path, and this is where we end up, I snapped back. At each other's throats because I wanted to be someone else. Suddenly, the sharp slam of a door echoed louder than any of the fighting. It came from my brother storming upstairs, presumably to escape this storm of accusations. I froze as silence enveloped the space, leaving only the sounds of heavy breathing and the beating of my heart echoing in my ears. What just happened? My sister asked, but her voice seemed distant. Insults hung in the air, thick and uncomfortable. There had been opportunities to connect, to heal, to understand, and now they were shattered like glass on a cold floor. I felt the weight of it crush my chest. Y'all don't understand any of this, I managed to say, my voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. You even care, I walked away from your expectations just so I could breathe. I can't believe we are having this conversation, my mother said, her tone more incredulous than ever. This is just simply unacceptable. As the words hung heavy, it dawned on me, this gathering had shifted. Voices softened, eyes darted, and every pair of eyes around the table felt like weighted judgments. And just when I thought the moment would settle into the abyss of regret, I stood my ground. I will not back down. I will not apologize for who I am, and I will not let you define me anymore. I turned to leave, desire clawing at my insides for one last thing to say before the door swung shut behind me. I have always been more than just your daughter. I'm me, and I will no longer be the one you cut off just for daring to be different. The heavy sounds of silence followed me into the hallway as I stormed away, my heart pounding, knowing that neither the battle nor the war was over. As the door closed behind me, I could still hear the muffled arguments lingering in the air like smoke. Yet, something within me reshaped itself in that moment. I wasn't the one being shut out. I was tired of feeling powerless when, for so long, I had felt betrayed. I would find my way to light, even if it meant carving a road through the darkness they surrounded me with. But little did I know, I had only just started to scratch the surface of their cut-off ties and secrets that would soon intertwine back into my narrative yet again. My chest tightened at the thoughts swimming through my mind. What else were they hiding? And how would they react when the truth came crashing down? With every step away from the fractured family dinner, determination boiled in my veins. Game on, I thought as I pushed the door open. Ready to face whatever this intended path would throw at me next, I stood there in the dimly lit living room, the air thick with tension, the hum of the ceiling fan barely breaking the silence that felt almost deafening. My mother was pacing near the window, her fingers clenching and unclenching as if she was trying to hold onto something that was slipping away. My father sat on the edge of his chair, his brow furrowed in concentration, and I could see the way his jaw tightened every time my mother shot him a glance that was meant to pierce right through him. My sister stood by the stairs, arms crossed, her presence like a storm cloud waiting to unleash its fury. This was it. We were all still reeling from the fallout of the last family meeting, the one where financial secrets were revealed like hidden scars on our family portrait. No one had spoken about it directly yet, but the stakes were clearer than ever. The inheritance, or rather the bitter dispute over it, hung in the air like a sour smell. Can you believe he would just cut me off like that? My sister finally broke the silence, her voice sharp and bitter, echoing off the walls. After everything I've done for this family, I was the only one who ever cared. My chest tightened as her words sank in. The betrayal was still fresh. I thought of the past few weeks. The texts my sister had sent, always filled with false bravado, her insistence that the money didn't matter to her, despite the fact that my grandfather had promised us all a share of the family estate. A quaint cottage on the outskirts of town, worth a generous sum, a likely $250,000. But for my sister, it had always been more than just property. It was proof that she was the favored child. "My daughter, stop being so dramatic," my mother snapped, her eyes filled with exasperation. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly well," my sister interrupted, cutting my mother off. "You chose them over me, didn't you? You think I didn't see the way you looked at my brother when he announced that he was going to sell that cottage? The same cottage that was supposed to be for all of us, and you allowed him to act like it was his alone?" The tension escalated as my brother entered the room, his presence instantaneously changing the dynamics. He held up his hands defensively, but I caught the smirk that threatened to break free from his lips. He was relishing this, the chaos swirling like a tornado. "Whoa, hold on," he said, feigning innocence. "I never said I would keep the cottage for myself. I just wanted to see what my options were. It's not my fault that grandfather decided to give the place to me outright. He handed over the title to me, so you can't just blame me for that." "Did he really? Is that what he said?" my mother questioned, her voice lowering, the mudded waters of our family secrets becoming even murkier. "You always had his ear, didn't you? Must be nice to be the golden child." My hands were shaking with frustration. All around me, shadows of our pasts loomed larger than life as each of us stood entrenched in our perspectives. I could feel my heart race as I succumbed to the urge to scream, to voice my own pain. Why had I been the silent observer for so long? "Enough," I finally blurted, feeling a mix of adrenaline and anger. "You all are making this so much worse than it already is." Grandfather was clear when he made his will. He wanted us to benefit as a family, not turn against each other. "It's not just about the money, it's about what we've shared as a family." That got their attention. My sister's eyes narrowed, a mix of skepticism and curiosity, while my mother's expression softened for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to catch a glimpse of her vulnerability. My brother leaned against the wall, arms crossed, contemplating my words. "Daughter, what do you really know about that, Will?" my mother asked, her voice suddenly tentative. "You haven't even seen it. You are misunderstanding what we're dealing with." "I don't need to see it to know how it's tearing us apart," I exclaimed, stepping forward. "You are all fighting over money like it's more important than our family. This is how our history gets rewritten, as if none of those memories ever mattered." "You think you are so wise," my sister scoffed. "But you are just a bystander in this drama. You never had to carry the weight of being considered an afterthought. You can't possibly comprehend our suffering." I felt a flush of heat rise in my cheeks as her words struck me like arrows. Inside, I was screaming, wanting to lash out, but I took a deep breath instead. My chest was tight, and my heart felt waxy, as though it was melting under the pressure of their judgment. "You don't think I've felt that way? That I've been the quiet one in the corner while you two played your parts as the favorites?" My brother threw his head back in laughter, mocking me. "Oh please, you're acting like this is a soap opera. You think it's so easy being us? Maybe we can handle a little arguing, a little drama," my sister added with a smirk, "but it's the fighting that gets us through. You wouldn't know anything about that. This is about family." I sunk my voice to a whisper, yearning for a connection. "Real family shouldn't fracture over money. We have seen what happens when we lose sight of that. Family. You have no idea what family is when everything revolves around petty jealousies and financial gain," my sister shouted, her face flushing with anger. You're naive if you think love matters at all when there is $250,000 at stake. Tension crackled like static in the air as we all glared at each other, unsure whether to storm out or stay and continue tearing each other apart. My mother clenched her jaw, eyes darting between us as if still trying to broker a peace deal, but I could see her slowly reassessing her allegiances as the stakes grew. You think it's so easy for me to choose favorites, but it's not, my mother yelled, finally letting out a fissure of her own frustration. I gave birth to you all, each of you carries part of my heart, and it rips me apart to watch you two fight. I never wanted it to come to this. That's the thing, Mother, my sister countered, her voice switching to a more icy tone. You do choose favorites. You've always favored him. You gave him the family car and you constantly brag about him. Do you even know how hard I had to work just to get your attention? Their voices were layers on top of layers, swirling together into an overwhelming presence that filled the space and spilled into my throat. It's not fair, I murmured more to myself than to them. You're so caught up in who gets what that you forget we're family. We're not supposed to hurt each other. The room fell silent, the weight of betrayal hanging heavy in the air. It felt like the walls were closing in, and I suddenly longed for a sense of belonging, a unifying hymn that could drown out the drama. Then my father broke the quiet with his solemn voice. Look at what we have become. This was supposed to be a home, not a battleground. I'm tired of the games, tired of the drama. My sister leaned in closer to him, her voice dripping with sarcasm. And yet you did nothing about it when you saw us falling apart. What were you waiting for, Dad? A sign? A mailman to deliver a letter? We're already in a mess, and it's time someone took responsibility. It hung there like a bitter pill, and I felt my breathing slow, as my heart settled heavily in my chest. I never thought it could come to this, a family unraveling because of something as fleeting as money. Cottage, this place filled with memories of laughter and love, was now just a bargaining chip in a sad game. Enough, I shouted, feeling a fire ignite deep within me. This family is worth more than the money you think you can just divide up. It's worth the laughter we had around the dinner table. It's worth the years we spent together. You think that title is going to mean anything once we tear each other apart? My mother finally raised her head, her eyes searching for resolve. We can work together, can't we? Talk this out rationally. Let's sit down and figure this out as a family. But my sister's expression twisted, going pale with fury. You don't get it at all. You're still trying to find a way to keep us under the same roof while we're all at each other's throats. You're scared of losing the perfect image of our family. Maybe I'm trying to save it, my mother said, her voice cracking. You are all I have. You don't understand what it means to me to see you fight like this. Then stop the fight. I cried, my emotions spilling out every which way. Instead of arguing over who deserves more, remember who we are. We're not just the sum of our possessions. We have memories that build us up. Love does exist beyond what you want to see as a tangible item, my brother scoffed. What memories, huh? You mean the ones where we all pretended to get along when it was convenient? The mocking tone in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. It's about time you all realize this isn't about feelings anymore. It's about the fact that you've all underestimated me, and that's about to change. I could feel my voice shaking, but I wasn't done. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Their expressions altered ever so slightly, recognizing the change in my demeanor. For too long, I had watched this family disintegrate in front of me, felt the anguish without ever vocalizing it. I refused to be quiet anymore. I could see the cracks forming within our tight-knit family facade, and that realization was both terrifying and liberating. I felt a pulse of determination laser-focused within me, as if a light had finally illuminated the darkness surrounding our family drama. With my heart racing and adrenaline surging through my veins, I stepped back toward the door with a resolute push of my shoulders, ready to break the tension. Suddenly, my sister shouted, "You think this is a game? You honestly believe you can just waltz away from this? Well, let me tell you something, you have no idea what's waiting for you outside this room." My heart started to pound louder, and I froze for a moment, fear creeping upon me. I turned slowly, looking back at them, my family caught in a whirlpool of tangled feelings that we had yet to fully grasp. You think you can shake me with threats? Watch me. And with that, I slammed the door behind me, leaving the chaos and drama reverberating in my wake. I did not know what was ahead, but I could feel the fire inside me that had yet to burn out. My spirit was ignited, and I was determined to uncover whatever secrets lay waiting beneath the surface, ready to cast light on the shadows that had instigated our family's downfall. Secrets were waiting to be uncovered, and with each passing moment, the tension was bound to emerge anew. The fight was far from over.